I'm so lucky to be joined by the GM of the Atlanta Falcons, Thomas Dimitroff. Thank you so much for making time for us in the visitors' locker room.
This is great. I can't wait.
Weird spot to be, but we love it. We're
visitors'
good.
locker room, right? Just the energy here. I can feel it. You guys are excited. It's just an exciting group out here. Your NFL Network team?
We have a lot of snacks, so it makes us all pretty happy. I'm curious, you're starting your 11th year as the GM of the Falcons, and you're the 4th longest tenured GM in the National Football League. I'm curious how you've seen analytics evolve in the 10 years now, almost 11, that you've been in the league.
So first of all, you're reminding me how old I am, which is amazing. It just seems like yesterday. I came in when I was 26 years old. You want to talk about the lack of analytical approaches, way back then. So I've seen this league over 25, 26, 27 years change drastically at a lot of levels. As a GM, so this is going into my 11th year. When I first got in as a GM, we first started working our world with the Falcons. We were using statistics, and we were talking about minor analytics, but we were never thinking about putting together an analytics group. And we have a staff now of 4+, about ready to have 2 more added to our analytics department.
Another person that didn't hire me. This is what we're learning here at the Combine, that everybody doesn't hire me. Got it.
So we definitely realized the benefits, right? And we have some very adept people within that department. One in Carl Pierberg, who is ideally. He's just got such a great understanding of football as well as the analytics side of things, and we are hiring the right people who continue to feed us with more and more ideas and more information, which I think is fascinating. I've always said, talked at MIT about this before, from a general manager perspective and a coaching perspective, I understand the importance of it all. I understand it's a supplement to what we do. So you never want to assume that a head coach is relying solely on analytics to call the game, or from an acquisition standpoint, as a co-team builder of this team, that I am relying all on the analytics and the statistical side of signing a player or going after a player. That's ridiculous. But to be able to supplement a very good coach, as Dan is, with analytics is fantastic. I think our department is very adept at picking players, both pro and college. I think being able to utilize statistics a lot of times will confirm what we know or what we don't know, or sometimes confirm the idea that we're going to move on from a potential move. So I love where we're going with it. I love that we're more and more open to it. Now, I've been around respectfully around certain high-level meetings within the NFL where you have half the people in the meetings who are avoiding the idea. They're thinking, it's too much. I don't want to talk about the analytics of everything. I want to just stay strictly with football, what I know. And I think that's unfortunate, because I think we all need to understand the benefits of being able to dabble at high levels in the analytics side of assessing.
So you kind of touched on something that is a really big theme on this pod, which is that it's a negotiation between getting the data insights and using the data insights. And there's always a human element involved in both sides, from the front office and from the coaching perspective, without giving away anything proprietary. Can you tell us kind of where in the process you use analytics for this year?
So, that's a great topic, and we've talked a lot about that, right? Making sure that whoever is delivering the information, especially to our head coach and our coaching staff, definitely don't make it cryptic and talk over their heads or make them feel that their intelligence level isn't satisfactory. That's such an important point. I think within our group and within our organization, our people are very mindful of that. And that comes down from myself and from Dan. Dan will accept a lot. He's a very open-minded head coach, which I love. But he doesn't want to be talked down to. He's got so many other things that he's fired up about and focused on within the realm of a week, or as we're going through a year. The last thing he wants to do is work through the puzzles of it. So I continue to tell our people, be very direct, simplify it, not because our people aren't smart enough to deal with it. That's not their world, right? Because we have some wildly intelligent people in the NFL, I believe. It's just, I think they're getting indoctrinated, and they have to be understanding and open-minded. To your point, so I would break it down like this for us. I would break it down. We use analytics for acquisitions, so pre-acquisition, i.e. where we are right now at the Combine. Post-acquisition, once we get the players and we continue to analyze them at so many levels, whether it is their abilities on the field, whether it is maybe their sleep patterns, whether it's rest and rehab, which is another part of the analytics element. So along with post-acquisition, it's rest and rehab, where we are with that, as well as opposition analysis. So we've basically broken it down into 4 different buckets within our organization, at least on the football operations side. And we find benefit at every level, and it is amazing with each year, not even each year, with each sort of segment and phase, more and more information is presented to me, and I'm just amazed, and I love it, because I think it makes you feel that much more comfortable to look across from an owner and swallow deep and say, Matt Ryan is worth X amount of dollars.
And you did that your first season.
I did it my first season.
Well, you didn't. You
from an acquisition
right.
standpoint.
You acquired him.
And then back in 13, when we signed him, we did it there. We definitely utilized an analytic approach to it. And here we are right now. We are at a really interesting crossroads in the
quarterback market is insane right now.
Right. So we are utilizing all we can to make sure that we're doing the right things and making sure that it's a very appropriate deal, of course.
Well, obviously. And obviously you went to a good college, so, I mean, the Boston College connection between me and Matt Ryan.
You kind of like that.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I think you have to value that. That, increases his...
Yes.
I think that should give him a little bit more money.
That's right.
He can have his agent help me with that.
He's already talked to me about that, yeah, so I'll keep that in mind. Good.
Perfect. So one of the players, so when I look through the past, and one of my players that I use as an archetype for the model of a wide receiver is Julio Jones. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the pod, and we talk about if you look at all his measurables. So obviously I map things a little bit different. So I looked at who he became in the league, and then I looked back at all the information that was available on him instead of looking forward, because I'm not a scout. I don't have to do that. And now I look at him, and he's the prototype. You made some trades to get him. So how do you kind of navigate, all right, this is a guy we want, and where do we value him in the draft?
Well, that was a complicated process, as
Yes.
you can imagine. It was an historical move, basically 21 spots to move up for him. And we were an organization, interestingly enough, if I go back a little bit, I remember in those earlier years before before Julio came in, and Matt came in 08, so 8, 9, and 10. We were always thinking about how are we going to get these defenses on their heels, right? We needed a stud in there that was going to be, whether he caught 4 balls or whether he caught 14 balls in a game, that he was going to have defenses in the league spun around. That was our goal, and we used a number of different receivers in the league looking at those type of players that weren't even physically anywhere near what Julio is. I mean, guys that were the opposite end of the spectrum as far as size. Guys like Deshaun Jackson, who were incredibly difficult to play against when he was at Philly, and we were thinking, my God, how are we going to deal with this? So we spent a lot of time talking about why we would do it. We knew that it was going to be a big deal as far as trying to cultivate a deal and trying to parlay all of our studies and everything into a deal. And we worked with Cleveland on it, of course, which is a whole other topic of conversation. We did so much background work on Julio from an analytics standpoint as well, even though that was early, right? That was 11. I think we were quite, I thought we were ahead of the curve in a lot of ways then. Without getting into the specifics of it, I look at where we were then, however, and where we are now, and I'm thinking we didn't even scratch the surface. I think back then we felt we did. And it was a very big part of what we were doing from a statistical analysis, interestingly enough, after we did take him, how we kept him on the field on the rest and rehab side of the injuries that he's had. We actually spent time up in Carolina, North Carolina University, and at Chapel Hill, and we spent time with him in a lab and really analyzed him at so many statistical and analytical levels. You would be amazed. You would have been fascinated by it, because we were trying to determine where he was with the power outage and how he was moving, what would potentially add to more stresses on his body, because he was just one of the most incredibly powerful people we had ever seen, right, pound for pound. So that was our post-acquisition element. We are continuing to work a lot from an analytical standpoint on our post-acquisition to keep him on the field as much as we can. As you know, he's such a hard-working guy on the field, and unfortunately, he takes a beating, and so we have to keep him on the field as much as possible.
This may sound stupid, but were you nervous making that big of a trade?
People had told me, and even Coach Belichick, we had a talk before. I mean, you're going to be, he was saying to me, you're going to be associated with that trade the rest of your career. I knew that. I mean, I've always felt like anything in business, anywhere in this world, if you don't take your chances, as long as they're not flipping chances, as long as they're
well, you did your homework, right?
Yes.
It's not like you were like, well, let's just roll the dice and see what happens.
That's exactly right. We knew it was a big organizational move. Mm-hmm. I knew personally, as much as I didn't want to talk about it with Arthur Blank, I knew that it was something that I was going to be judged off of. Mm-hmm. And as you know, when we made the pick, I mean, the critics out there thought,
whatever.
Thought I lost
they can
my
think
mind.
Whatever.
Right.
Because where we are now.
Yes. We were all over the place there, right? I remember when it came up on the screen, We were all in the draft room. Arthur was standing beside me. We were excited about it. We make the move, and ESPN starts ripping on Julio for missing every ball, this, that. There were like 10 balls dropped. Arthur kind of looked at me and he said,
well, that's that other network. That's why we're on this one.
Geez, I shouldn't be using that, yes. But
No,
the simple fact is, there was just so much critique about going up and going after a receiver, which wasn't common, right?
Right.
I think that's one of the things that has definitely changed, and I was talking about this the other day. We have a lot of general managers that are, in their early 40s, completely different group than there was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the what people have always deemed as you wouldn't go up for a receiver or you wouldn't go after a guard early, it is all about how those players can affect your team now, because we all know this is a not-for-long league. We all know my contemporaries in the league, we all believe, like, you better capitalize now, you and your head coach, or you may not be around in 3 years. Right. Things are moving fast.
Really quickly. You did the same kind of thing last year with Takk McKinley. You went up and you jumped ahead of the Cowboys, who presumably were going to take a pass rusher. You got Takk McKinley, seems to be paying off well.
Really excited about Takk McKinley, of course. We were aggressive with that as well. We knew that we were going to have to move up. Interestingly enough, through that whole process, for months probably, we were trying to run all these different scenarios, trying to figure out how far up we would have to go to get certain players. Of course, you never know, right? Because it's not an exact science. And we had a number of rushers that we were looking at, and we were very fortunate at that point to go after Takk. Takk, from a statistical standpoint and what he does for us, how he contributed this year, how we expected him to contribute last year.
That's the key right there,
yes.
right? The expectation.
The expectation. And the probability and the potential for where he is right now, we're really excited. But there were elements to his play that we knew that we were taking a little bit of a chance on.
Mm-hmm.
And, personality, he was maturing, of course. He had I think a fine year last year, and he's really matured. Mm-hmm. It's one of the moves, another move. We did it with Trufant. Back, I think that was 13. I can't remember. I think it was 13. We've been very aggressive about going up to get players, and it comes back to what we believe. I don't want to use this snowboard line, but the go big or go home thing. I do believe in that, right? You, as a team, you have to go after what you think is going to help your organization, and by making sure you do your research. What this whole podcast is about and this discussion is about, as long as you've done your research and you haven't flippantly made a decision on someone, I think you can hold your head high and you hope that it all works out.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us. I know you need to get going, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there's no better dressed person in the entire NFL than this man I'm sitting next to here. We're very lucky we're actually kind of matched today. I don't know. We'll put a picture of it so people can see it if they can't, which makes me feel really proud. Like, I'm really proud of myself because you are by far and away the best dressed man in the NFL.
Do you think I could get away with the whole fur thing?
A fur collar? Yeah. Yes, you could absolutely pull off a fur collar. Thank you so much.
Well, there are other people in the league, as you know, that want to take that. So you can divvy that out to other people because I know
it's faux.
Yeah, it's
mine's faux.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.